Emily and Sarah thought they shared everything as sister secrets, childhood memories, and family bonds. But what they never imagined was sharing the same husband. One man, Martin Cole, managed to trap them both in a web of lies, leading to one of the most shocking cases of betrayal and crime this town had ever seen. Emily Cole believed her life was steady and secure. She had married Martin Cole, a man who carried himself with confidence and spoke with the kind of charm that instantly disarmed people. To neighbors and co-workers, Martin was the image of reliability. He worked long hours, dressed sharply, and never failed to wave when he passed someone on the street. Emily admired his dedication and often told friends that she felt lucky to have a partner who seemed both ambitious and caring. To her, their marriage wasn't glamorous, but it was safe, and safety was something she valued deeply. But appearances can be deceiving. While Emily saw only the polished husband, Martin was carefully building a life that thrived on secrecy. From the very beginning, his schedule was filled with unexplained business trips and late nights at the office. He claimed to be advancing his career, taking on projects that required him to travel across the state. Emily, proud of his commitment, rarely questioned it. She told herself that hard work was the price of success, and that sacrifices now would lead to comfort later. She never considered that those same nights away might be hiding something far more dangerous than a demanding workload. When Emily's younger sister, Sarah, returned to town, her presence brought warmth to Emily's otherwise quiet life. The sisters had been close growing up, but time and distance had created a gap between them. Now, living only a short drive away, they began to reconnect. Family dinners and weekend visits became part of their routine. Martin appeared welcoming, offering smiles and hospitality whenever Sarah came around. To Emily, his kindness toward her sister was another sign of his good nature. To Sarah, it was disarming, the type of attention that felt genuine and flattering. Martin had always been skilled at reading people, and with Sarah, he knew exactly how to present himself. While Emily admired his stability, Sarah was drawn to his confidence and charm. He presented himself as a man who had endured difficulties and carried silent burdens, someone who longed to be understood. It was a performance he had perfected, and Sarah never questioned why those burdens seemed to exist outside Emily's awareness. Think about this for a moment. How many secrets could be hidden in a marriage without one partner realizing it? Could someone like Emily, so trusting and committed, really miss the warning signs? Drop a comment with your thoughts. Would you notice if your spouse had unexplained gaps in their life? As months went by, Emily began to notice small inconsistencies, though she brushed them aside quickly. A hotel receipt that Martin explained away as a mix-up, phone calls he stepped outside to take, and a new credit card she hadn't known about. None of it seemed serious enough to question. After all, wasn't every marriage filled with small mysteries and moments of uncertainty? Emily trusted Martin, and trust often silences doubt. Martin thrived on that silence. He counted on Emily's willingness to accept his excuses and her loyalty to protect his secrets. What Emily couldn't see was that Martin had already crossed boundaries that would eventually shatter her world. Sarah, drawn closer with every interaction, had become a part of his hidden life. He painted a picture of loneliness to her, telling her stories of a strained marriage and a heart that felt unloved. Sarah, still searching for stability in her own life, believed him. She saw Martin as a man stuck in an unhappy home, and her compassion made her blind to the possibility of lies. As the months passed, Emily unknowingly stood at the edge of betrayal, her trust fueling Martin's deception. What began as admiration between her sister and her husband would soon spiral into something unthinkable. Yet, at this stage, Emily remained unaware. To her, she was living the ordinary life of a devoted wife, never realizing that her husband was weaving two realities at once. When you hear stories like this, it's hard not to wonder, how much do we really know about the people closest to us? Could the person sitting beside you right now be hiding a double life? If you're following along with this case, don't forget to like this video, because what happens next will leave you questioning every assumption about trust, love, and loyalty. By the time Emily began to notice the distance growing between her and Martin, the trap was already set. What she thought was a husband working hard for their future was actually a man building an entire second life. Emily believed in their marriage, and in that belief, she unknowingly gave Martin everything he needed: her loyalty, her silence, and her complete faith. That faith would be the very thing that allowed the greatest betrayal of her life to unfold right in front of her, hidden in plain sight. Sarah had always been the more restless of the two sisters. Where Emily valued order and security, Sarah often chased excitement and change. Returning to town after years away, she was vulnerable, unsure of her direction in life. Martin recognized this quickly. He was skilled at identifying weakness, at sensing when someone needed comfort, and he used that awareness to his advantage. To Sarah, he presented himself as misunderstood, a man trapped in an unhappy marriage, desperately searching for real love. He told her he was already separated, that his relationship with Emily had long ended in everything but paperwork. The story was convincing, layered with small, believable details that left Sarah with little reason to doubt him. Their connection grew fast. Within weeks, Sarah found herself spending more and more time with Martin, under the pretense of friendship. He made her feel seen in a way she hadn't experienced in years. He complimented her ambitions, encouraged her when she doubted herself, and reminded her that she deserved happiness. His words were rehearsed, but Sarah didn't know that. She believed she had found someone who valued her. In reality, she had stepped straight into a carefully designed trap. Martin played his role flawlessly. He staged arguments that Emily never witnessed, told Sarah he slept in separate rooms, and created a false narrative of neglect. Sarah's sympathy grew into affection, and soon, affection became love. Martin didn't hesitate to encourage it. With charm and persistence, he convinced her that their relationship was not an affair but the beginning of something real. He whispered promises of a future together, one where the past would no longer haunt him. Within months, Martin proposed marriage. The ceremony was small, quick, and private. He told Sarah it was better this way, that he wanted their love to be about them, and not about the opinions of others. She agreed, never realizing she had just become her sister's co-wife. In her mind, she was starting a new chapter of her life. In truth, she had been drawn into the very center of Martin's web of lies. What makes this more disturbing is how seamlessly Martin juggled both lives. One weekend he was Emily's devoted husband, the next he was Sarah's new spouse. To Emily, he was a man traveling for business, attending conferences and late-night meetings. To Sarah, he was a husband building a future. He managed schedules with meticulous care, memorizing details to avoid contradictions. When he was with Sarah, he kept Emily at bay with messages about flight delays or long hours. When he was with Emily, he told her he couldn't call because of late meetings. The deception was so precise that neither sister thought to question him. Think about it for a moment. Could you imagine someone close to you hiding an entire second marriage? How long do you think you would go without noticing the signs? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because this case forces us to confront just how fragile trust can be. For Sarah, the first cracks appeared when she noticed Martin was unusually protective of his phone. He explained it as work-related, and she accepted it. For Emily, the cracks came in the form of unexplained expenses and sudden withdrawals, but she too brushed them aside. Both sisters were living parallel lives of doubt, each too trusting to believe Martin could be lying. That blind faith gave him the freedom to continue his double life, that as months stretched into years, Martin's confidence grew. He had successfully built 2 marriages, 2 homes, and 2 wives who had no idea about each other. What should have been impossible became reality because of his ability to manipulate emotions. He kept Sarah convinced that Emily was only a shadow of his past, and Emily convinced that Sarah was nothing more than her younger sister rebuilding her life. Nearby, Martin's greatest strength was his control of perception. He knew exactly how to make Sarah feel chosen and how to make Emily feel secure. With every lie he told, the trap tightened around them both. What began as a quiet deception had now escalated into a criminal secret to legal marriages, hidden in plain sight. Looking back, it's easy to wonder why Sarah never suspected the truth. She saw a man who loved her, who took risks to be with her, who told her stories that sounded too painful not to believe. But manipulation works best on trust, and Martin exploited hers without hesitation. The result was a tangled web of lies, one that grew so large it was only a matter of time before it unraveled. By this point, both sisters were unknowingly tied to the same man, living lives that intersected in ways neither of them could yet see. The betrayal was deep, but the most shocking part of the story was still to come. Because what Martin had built wasn't just a double marriage, it was the foundation of a crime that would eventually pull everything apart. Sarah's suspicions began with something so small it almost seemed meaningless. One evening, she borrowed Martin's car to run an errand. As she slid the seat back, a folded photograph slipped out from beneath the visor. It showed Martin and Emily together, smiling in a way that looked far too natural to be the remnants of a broken marriage. The picture wasn't old or faded, it looked recent. Sarah's hands trembled as she held it. Martin had assured her time and again that his relationship with Emily was over. But this photo told another story. The unease grew stronger over the following weeks. Sarah couldn't ignore the questions in her mind. Why did Martin vanish on certain weekends? Why were his explanations always just detailed enough to sound believable but never specific? She had believed him once, but now her trust was weakening. One night, curiosity pushed her to look deeper. While Martin showered, she checked his wallet. Inside were receipts from restaurants he had never taken her to and hotel stays in the same city, where he claimed to be working late. The evidence was piling up, and every piece chipped away at the story he had built for her. Determined to find the truth, Sarah began to quietly investigate. She searched his name online, checked local records, and scrolled through social media with a sharper eye. That's when she stumbled across tagged photos from neighborhood events, photos of Martin and Emily standing together, still very much a married couple. They weren't distant or estranged. They looked like husband and wife. The shock hit Sarah like a wave. It wasn't just that Martin had lied. It was that she had married her sister's husband without ever realizing it. The betrayal was overwhelming. But as Sarah dug deeper, the lies became even darker. One afternoon, she followed him when he claimed to be heading to a meeting. Instead of driving downtown, Martin went straight to Emily's house. Sarah sat in her car, watching as he carried groceries inside and kissed Emily on the cheek. There was no estrangement, no separation, no shadow of a divorce. He was living a double life in full view, confident that neither sister would ever discover the truth. The emotional damage was only part of the story. As Sarah pieced together documents she found in his office drawer, she realized Martin had been controlling their finances with alarming precision. Bank statements revealed large withdrawals that neither she nor Emily had approved. Credit cards in their names were maxed out, with purchases they hadn't made. Savings accounts were slowly drained. It became clear that Martin wasn't just lying about Lovey, was stealing from both women to cover debts they never knew existed. Fraud blended seamlessly with betrayal. He had forged signatures, created false accounts, and rerouted funds. While Emily believed Martin was investing in their future, and Sarah thought he was building a new life with her, he was using them both as financial lifelines to keep his crumbling world afloat. The more Sarah uncovered, the more dangerous the situation looked. Imagine for a moment what it would feel like to discover not only that your husband is secretly married to your sister, but also that he has been draining your finances behind your back. Could you forgive a betrayal like that? Could you ever trust again? Comment below with what you think you would do in Sarah's place. The discovery left Sarah torn between fear and rage. She knew she couldn't keep the truth to herself, but confronting Emily seemed impossible. How could she tell her sister that the man she loved, the man she trusted, was also Sarah's husband? The guilt was crushing. For weeks, Sarah wrestled with whether to expose Martin or stay silent, but the financial fraud made the choice for her. Silence was no longer safe. Martin's deception wasn't just a family secret. It was a crime that could destroy them both if left unchecked. As Sarah prepared to reveal everything, Martin continued his performance, unaware that his carefully built double life was crumbling. He still moved seamlessly between households, still convinced that his charm and manipulation were enough to keep the truth buried. But the cracks had widened too far. The sisters' lives were already colliding, and the moment of reckoning was coming closer with every passing day. What began as a marriage filled with trust and admiration had now unraveled into one of the most shocking stories of betrayal, greed, and deception. For Martin, the end was inevitable. For Emily and Sarah, the devastation was only beginning. And as the truth prepared to surface, the fallout would shatter their lives in ways none of them could have predicted. When the truth finally came out, it was not through careful confession or a slow unraveling. It was sudden, brutal, and unforgettable. Emily discovered the betrayal when Sarah, trembling and pale, came to her with the evidence she had gathered. She brought the receipts, the photographs, and the marriage certificate that should never have existed. For a moment, Emily refused to believe it. The idea that her husband, the man she trusted with every part of her life, could have secretly married her own sister felt impossible. But the proof was undeniable. The confrontation between the sisters was heavy with shock and grief. Emily's anger was fierce, but beneath it was heartbreak. Sarah's guilt was suffocating, knowing she had been deceived into betraying the very person she loved most. Both women had been trapped in the same web, and now they stood together, staring at the destruction Martin had left behind. What could have been a permanent fracture between them instead became an unexpected bond. They were no longer just sisters. They were survivors of the same devastating betrayal. When Martin returned that evening, he walked into a storm he could not control. The confrontation exposed his lies in seconds. Emily held up the marriage certificate. Sarah threw down the receipts and bank statements. For once, Martin had no clever excuse, no charm to smooth over the disaster. His silence was louder than any words. The walls he had built so carefully came crashing down in the face of the truth. The next step was inevitable. The sisters went to the authorities, carrying with them every piece of evidence they had gathered. Investigators were stunned by the scale of Martin's deception. It wasn't only a case of bigamy. It was fraud, identity, manipulation, and financial exploitation. He had forged signatures, stolen funds, and used both women as pawns in a scheme that reached far beyond their marriages. The police uncovered accounts in multiple banks, loans taken in their names, and thousands of dollars siphoned away. What had begun as a twisted love story was now a full criminal case. Martin was arrested within days. The trial that followed captured the attention of everyone in the community. Neighbors who once admired his charm now watched in disbelief as the truth spilled into the open. Prosecutors laid out a timeline that showed years of calculated lies, to legal marriages, and financial fraud that left both sisters in debt. Witnesses described him as a man who could wear masks effortlessly, shifting from doting husband to manipulative criminal without hesitation. Emily and Sarah, though devastated, testified with strength. They told the court how he had deceived them, how he had stolen not only their money but also their trust, their futures, and their peace of mind. The betrayal cut deeper than financial loss. It had damaged their sense of safety, their ability to trust, and their relationship with each other. Yet, standing together in court, their unity was undeniable. They had been manipulated, but they refused to remain victims. The verdict was clear. Martin was found guilty of bigamy, fraud, and theft. The judge described his actions as calculated cruelty, designed to exploit the love and loyalty of the two people who should have been safest in his care. His sentence was long, with no chance of rebuilding the double life he had so carefully created. The mask had been ripped away, and the man once admired as reliable and hard-working was revealed to be nothing more than a liar and a thief. For Emily and Sarah, the scars were lasting. Trust was not something that could be rebuilt overnight. Their relationship, once filled with warmth and laughter, now carried the weight of shared betrayal. Yet through the pain, they discovered resilience. They learned to lean on each other, to support one another through the long recovery that followed. What Martin had tried to break, they slowly began to rebuild. Their bond as sisters became stronger, shaped not by innocence but by survival. It is chilling to think about how easily Martin managed to maintain his lies for so long. He lived two lives, deceived two women, and drained their resources without being caught for years. Could you imagine finding yourself in Emily's place, betrayed by your own husband? Or Sarah's, realizing you had married your sister's spouse without knowing? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this story forces us to confront just how fragile trust can be. The story of Martin Cole remains a haunting reminder that the people closest to us are sometimes the ones who hide the darkest secrets. Emily and Sarah's lives were shattered, but their strength in exposing him ensured that justice was served. The case left the town shaken, neighbors whispering about how they never suspected a thing. And for the sisters, it left a lesson carved deep into their hearts. Betrayal can come from the last person you would ever suspect, but even in the face of devastation, survival and justice are still possible.